My daughter will have the Duke, not you.
On the edge of a white chalk cliff, where the sea crashed 200 feet below, a woman's hand pressed against her stepdaughter's back. One sharp push, and Yasmin Chamberlain tumbled forward. Her scream tore through the coastal wind, but no one heard, except the woman who shoved her. Lady Linda Simpson straightened her silk gloves, her face cold as winter stone. My daughter will have the Duke, not you. But why such hatred? Why such venom in a mother's heart? Before this tale unfolds, we need your support. We love bringing these stories to you, and we also appreciate how much support you have shown. But it is essential that we receive more subscribers, more support through likes, comments and shares in order to continue bringing more content. So smash the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and tell us where in the world are you watching from. Thank you. Now let's go back to the story. Many years ago, in the English county of Norcaster, where morning fog rolled across green hills like silk pulled from a spindle, a duke returned home. It was the spring of 1880. Church bells rang across the countryside, and the scent of wild roses drifted through manor gardens. The entire county whispered that Zachary Doyle, Duke of Norcaster, would soon choose a bride. And so the preparations began. Mothers primped their daughters, fathers polished their reputations, and stepmothers plotted in the shadows. At that same time, in the cold halls of Simpson Manor, two young women lived under one roof. One was Yasmin Chamberlain, daughter of the late gentleman whose name still hung on the family crest. The other was Georgina Simpson, what raised on silk sheets and sugar-coated lies. But only one would survive what came next. Yasmin woke before dawn, as she always did. The floorboards of Simpson Manor were coldest in the hour before sunrise, and her small room in the east wing held no fireplace. She dressed quickly in the dim light, her fingers fastening the worn buttons of a green cotton dress that had once belonged to her mother. She could still remember her mother's face. Soft, kind, gone too soon. Her father had remarried 3 years after the fever took her mother. Lady Linda Simpson had arrived with her daughter Georgina, both dressed in expensive mourning clothes for a husband barely cold in his grave. William Chamberlain had been lonely. Yasmin understood that now. He had wanted companionship. He had wanted a mother for his daughter. He had chosen poorly. William Chamberlain died 5 years ago. A riding accident, they said. His horse spooked near the river and threw him against the rocks. He never woke up. Yasmin had been 17. Georgina, 16. Lady Linda had taken control of the estate immediately, citing her position as widow and guardian. No one questioned it. Women with titles and confidence were rarely challenged. Downstairs, the kitchen was still dark. Yasmin lit the stove herself, boiled water for tea, and set the table for breakfast. By the time the house staff arrived, the morning duties were half finished. Elizabeth Ferguson, the housemaid, paused in the doorway. She was a woman of 40, with kind eyes and careful words. Her grey dress was plain but clean, her apron starched and tied neatly. "You shouldn't do my work, Miss Yasmin." Yasmin smiled softly. "Or it gives me something to do." Elizabeth's face tightened, but she said nothing more. She had worked at Simpson Manor for 15 years. She had watched Yasmin grow from a cheerful child into a quiet young woman who moved through the house like a shadow. She knew what silence protected. Elizabeth stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Lady Simpson was asking for you last night, after you'd gone to bed." Yasmin's hands stilled over the teacup. "What did she want?" "I don't know, but she wasn't pleased you'd already retired." Elizabeth's eyes flickered with warning. "Be careful today, miss." Yasmin nodded. "Thank you, Elizabeth." The older woman touched her shoulder briefly before disappearing into the pantry. Upstairs, Lady Linda Simpson stood before a gilded mirror, adjusting the jeweled combs in her dark hair. Her morning dress was deep blue silk, tailored perfectly to her frame. Every thread, every stitch, every button spoke of wealth that had been inherited, not earned. She studied her reflection with the cold precision of a general inspecting troops. Her face was still beautiful at 43. High cheekbones, sharp eyes, a mouth that smiled when it served her purpose. Behind her, Georgina sat at the vanity, her blonde curls pinned in delicate ringlets. She wore a pale yellow dress with lace trim at the collar and sleeves. Her hands fidgeted with a silk ribbon. "The Duke arrives today, Mother." Lady Linda's eyes sharpened. "I am aware. Do you think he'll attend the garden party next week?" "He will. And you will be ready." Georgina's hands twisted the ribbon tighter. "What if he doesn't notice me?" Lady Linda turned slowly, her expression hard. "He will notice you, because you are everything a duke should want. Beautiful, well-bred, obedient." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And because that girl downstairs will not stand in your way." Georgina's eyes flickered. "Yasmin?" "Yes, Yasmin." The name was spoken like a curse. Lady Linda straightened and walked to the window. Beyond the glass, the grounds of Simpson Manor stretched wide and green. Horses grazed near the stables. Gardeners trimmed hedges into perfect lines. Everything looked orderly, controlled. But control, Lady Linda knew, required constant vigilance. "She's been too visible lately," Lady Linda said quietly. "At the church social, at the county assembly, people have started to notice her. She barely speaks." "Exactly. And that makes her interesting." Lady Linda's jaw set. "What interesting is dangerous." Georgina looked down at her hands. "What will you do?" Lady Linda didn't answer. She simply walked out of the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. Yasmin spent the morning in the gardens, cutting flowers for the dining table. The roses were in full bloom, their petals soft and fragrant. Red, pink, white, yellow. She worked slowly, carefully, placing each stem in her wicker basket. The garden had been her mother's pride. Yasmin still remembered walking these paths as a child, her small hand tucked into her mother's larger one. Her mother had taught her the names of every flower, every herb. Lavender for calm, rosemary for remembrance, roses for love. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her until a voice spoke. "Those are lovely." Yasmin turned. A man stood at the garden gate, tall and lean, dressed in a black riding coat and crisp white shirt. His trousers were a soft lemon green, tailored and clean. His dark hair was swept back, and his eyes were sharp, observant. A bay horse stood behind him, calm and patient. She recognized him immediately. Zachary Doyle, Duke of Norcaster. Yasmin curtsied quickly, her basket nearly slipping from her hands. "Your Grace." He smiled, but it was subtle, restrained. "Forgive the intrusion. I was riding the property line and saw the manor. I thought I'd pay my respects." "Lady Simpson is inside. I can fetch her." "No need." He stepped closer, his gaze moving to the roses. "You have a good eye for arrangement." Yasmin felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Thank you." "You live here?" "Yes, Your Grace." "Family?" She hesitated. "My father was William Chamberlain. He passed 5 years ago." Zachary's expression shifted, something unreadable crossing his face. "I knew your father. Briefly. He was a good man." Yasmin's throat tightened. "He was." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind moved through the garden, carrying the scent of lavender and earth. Bees hummed among the flowers. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called. Zachary's eyes lingered on her face. There was something in her expression that caught him. Not beauty, though she was lovely in a quiet way, but something deeper. A stillness, a sadness she tried to hide. "What's your name?" he asked. "Yasmin, Your Grace." Yasmin Chamberlain. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Chamberlain." He nodded once, then turned and walked back toward his horse. His movements were smooth and deliberate. He mounted with ease, settling into the saddle. Before he rode away, he looked back at her. "I hope to see you again." Yasmin watched him go, her heart beating faster than it should. She didn't notice the curtain move in the upstairs window, didn't see Lady Linda's face, pale with fury, watching from the shadows. That evening, Lady Linda summoned Yasmin to the parlour. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of the hearth. Lady Linda sat in a high-backed chair, her posture rigid, her hands folded in her lap. The firelight cast sharp shadows across her face. "Sit." Yasmin obeyed, lowering herself onto the edge of a wooden stool near the door. Lady Linda's eyes were cold. "The Duke spoke to you today." It wasn't a question. Yasmin nodded. "He was passing by. He paid his respects." "And what did you say to him?" "Nothing of consequence. He asked about the roses. I told him my father's name." Lady Linda's lips pressed into a thin line. "You will not speak to him again." Yasmin's hands folded in her lap. "I didn't seek him out." "I don't care." Lady Linda leaned forward, her voice low and venomous. "You are nothing in this house. A charity case, a burden. You will not embarrass this family by pretending to be something you are not." Yasmin's ribs ached, but she kept her face calm. "I understand." "Good." Lady Linda stood, smoothing her skirts. "Because if you forget your place again, you will regret it." She left the room without another word. Yasmin sat alone in the dim parlour, the fire crackling softly in the silence. She had learned long ago not to cry. Tears changed nothing. They only gave Lady Linda satisfaction. So she sat, still, silent, waiting for the ache to fade. Upstairs, and Elizabeth Ferguson stood in the hallway, her ear pressed to the wall. She had heard everything. Her hands shook as she walked back to her small room in the servants' quarters. She sat on her narrow bed and stared at the wall. She had served this house for 15 years, had watched Lady Linda's cruelty grow like mold in the dark, had seen Yasmin shrink under the weight of it. But what could she do? She was a servant, a woman with no power, no voice. Still, she made a decision that night. If the time came, she would speak. Georgina Simpson had been 5 years old when her mother married William Chamberlain. She remembered little of her own father, only that he had died quietly, leaving behind debts and disappointment. Her mother never spoke of him with affection. William Chamberlain had been different, kind, patient. He read to her before bed and brought her sweets from town. He never raised his voice, never struck her, never made her feel small, but he had also brought Yasmin. At first, Georgina hadn't minded. Yasmin was quiet, easy to ignore. She didn't demand attention or compete for affection. She simply existed, like furniture. But as they grew older, something shifted. People noticed Yasmin, not for her clothes or her manners, but for something else. Something Georgina couldn't name. A gentleness, a grace that wasn't taught. And her mother noticed, too. Lady Linda began shaping Georgina like clay on a wheel. Posture lessons, embroidery, French, piano, dancing. Every day, a new skill. Every week, a new expectation. "You must be flawless," her mother said, again and again. "You must be the kind of woman men remember." Georgina tried. She truly did. But no matter how perfect her curls, how polished her manners, she always felt like she was chasing something just out of reach. Now, at 22, the Duke had returned, and her mother's ambition had sharpened into something dangerous. The garden party was held at Norcaster Hall, a sprawling estate with manicured lawns and marble fountains. The entire county attended. Women wore their finest gowns. Men wore crisp suits and polished boots. Servants carried trays of champagne and cakes. Georgina wore a gown of pale pink silk, her hair adorned with pearls. She stood beside her mother, smiling at the right moments, curtsying at the right times. Yasmin had not been invited, but Elizabeth Ferguson had whispered the truth to her that morning. Lady Linda told the Duke's staff you were ill. She didn't want you here. Yasmin had nodded quietly. She was used to erasure. At the party, Zachary Doyle moved through the crowd with practiced ease. He greeted guests, made small talk, smiled when expected. He wore a dark grey suit, perfectly tailored. His expression was polite, but his eyes were distant. He was bored. These gatherings were all the same. Ambitious mothers parading their daughters, fathers discussing land and politics, everyone pretending to care about everyone else. But his mind kept drifting back to the girl in the garden, or to the one with tired eyes and careful hands, the one who spoke her father's name like a prayer. He had asked about her discreetly, learned that she lived in the manor but was rarely seen in society. He wondered why. Lady Linda approached him with Georgina in tow. "Your Grace, what a pleasure." Zachary bowed slightly. "Lady Simpson." "Miss Simpson." Georgina curtsied, her smile bright and practiced. "Your Grace, I hope you're enjoying the party," Lady Linda said. "Very much. You've done a wonderful job with the arrangements." "Thank you." Georgina helped with the flower selections. Zachary looked at Georgina. "They're beautiful." Georgina's cheeks flushed. "You're too kind, Your Grace." They spoke for several minutes, polite conversation, safe topics, but Zachary's attention kept wandering. Finally, he excused himself. "Forgive me. I see an old friend I must greet." Lady Linda's smile didn't falter, but her eyes hardened. As Zachary walked away, she leaned close to Georgina. "You need to do better." Georgina's face fell. "I spoke well. Not well enough." Lady Linda's voice was sharp. "He barely looked at you." Georgina's hands trembled. "What more can I do? Be more interesting. Be more charming. Be more than you are." Georgina felt something crack inside her, but she nodded. "Yes, Mother." That night, Zachary sat in his study at Norcaster Hall, a glass of brandy in his hand. The fire burned low in the hearth. The room was quiet. Nicholas Baker, his estate steward, knocked softly before entering. "Your Grace." "Come in, Nicholas." Nicholas was a man in his 50s, sharp-eyed and efficient. He had served the Doyle family for 30 years. Now he knew Zachary better than most. "How was the party?" Zachary sighed. "Tedious." Nicholas smiled faintly. "As expected. Every eligible woman in the county was there, and I felt nothing. Perhaps you're not looking in the right places." Zachary glanced at him. "What do you mean?" Nicholas hesitated. "There's talk in the servants' quarters about Simpson Manor." Zachary's interest sharpened. "What kind of talk?" "About Lady Simpson and her stepdaughter." "Miss Chamberlain?" Nicholas nodded. "She's rarely seen, rarely spoken of, but those who know her speak well of her." Zachary swirled his brandy. "Go on." "Lady Simpson is ambitious. She wants her daughter to marry well. Some say she's cruel to Miss Chamberlain. Keeps her hidden." Zachary's jaw tightened. "Why?" "Jealousy, perhaps. Fear. Miss Chamberlain is her late husband's daughter. A reminder of the past. Zachary set down his glass. I want to know more. Your Grace? About the household, about how Miss Chamberlain is treated, discreetly. Nicholas nodded. I'll see what I can learn. After Nicholas left, Zachary stood at the window, staring out at the dark grounds. He thought of Yasmin's quiet voice, her sad eyes, the way she had curtsied so carefully, as if afraid of taking up space. Something was wrong in that house, and he intended to find out what. The following Sunday, the entire county gathered at St. Michael's Church for morning service. It was tradition. Families sat in their assigned pews, dressed in their finest, and listened to Reverend Peter Giles speak of grace and humility. Peter Giles was a man of 50, tall and thin, with silver hair and kind eyes. He had been the Reverend of St. Michael's for 20 years. He knew every family in the parish, every secret whispered in confession. Lady Simpson's pew was near the front. Georgina sat beside her mother, head bowed, gloved hands folded in prayer. Her dress was lavender silk, her hat adorned with small white flowers. Yasmin sat 3 rows behind them, alone. She wore the same green dress she always wore, mended carefully at the seams. Her hair was pinned simply, no ribbons, no decoration. She held a worn prayer book in her lap. But when she lifted her head during the hymn, her voice rose clear and true. Several heads turned, including the Duke's. Zachary Doyle sat across the aisle with Nicholas Baker. He wore a dark blue suit, simple and elegant. When he heard Yasmin's voice, he looked up. There she was, sitting alone, singing with her eyes closed, her face peaceful. Then Nicholas leaned closer. That's Miss Chamberlain, Your Grace. I know. Strange she sits alone. Zachary said nothing, but his gaze lingered. After the service, the congregation gathered outside in the churchyard. Conversations bloomed in clusters. Mothers introduced daughters. Fathers spoke of crops and commerce. Yasmin walked toward the stone path that led back toward Simpson Manor, keeping her head down. Miss Chamberlain. She stopped, turned. Zachary stood a few paces away, his hat in his hands. Your Grace. She curtsied quickly. You have a lovely voice. Her cheeks flushed. Thank you. I hope your health has improved. Yasmin hesitated. I wasn't ill, Your Grace. His brow furrowed slightly. Lady Simpson said. Lady Simpson was mistaken. The words came out before she could stop them. Zachary studied her carefully, but his expression unreadable. I see. Before he could say more, Lady Linda's voice cut through the air. Yasmin. She turned. Lady Linda stood near the church gate, her face composed but her eyes sharp as blades. We're leaving. Now. Yasmin curtsied to the Duke once more and hurried toward the carriage. Zachary watched her go, his jaw tightening. Peter Giles approached him quietly. Your Grace. Reverend. Peter's face was serious. May I speak plainly? Please. Be careful with that family. There are wounds in that house that run deep. Zachary's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I cannot say more. But watch and listen. Peter walked away, leaving Zachary standing alone in the churchyard. Nicholas appeared beside him. Trouble in that house, Your Grace. So it seems. The ride back to Simpson Manor was silent, while Georgina stared out the window. Yasmin sat with her hands folded, her heart racing. Lady Linda said nothing until they were inside the manor, doors closed, servants dismissed. Then she struck. Her hand came across Yasmin's face, with a crack that echoed through the hallway. Yasmin stumbled back, her cheek burning. You spoke to him, after I told you not to. He spoke to me first. I don't care. Lady Linda's voice rose, shaking with rage. You are nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. And you will stop pretending otherwise. tears burned behind Yasmin's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Georgina stood frozen in the doorway, her face pale. Lady Linda turned to her daughter. "Go upstairs." Georgina hesitated. "Mother." "Now." Georgina obeyed. Lady Linda stepped closer to Yasmin, her voice dropping to a whisper. "If you embarrass this family again, I will make sure you regret it." She walked away, leaving Yasmin alone in the hallway, her cheek throbbing. Elizabeth appeared moments later, her face stricken. She said nothing, but she gently touched Yasmin's shoulder before guiding her toward the kitchen. In the kitchen, Elizabeth dampened a cloth and pressed it carefully to Yasmin's cheek. "She's getting worse," Elizabeth whispered. Yasmin closed her eyes. "I know. You can't keep living like this. What choice do I have?" Elizabeth's hands trembled. "I don't know. But something has to change." That night, Yasmin lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling. She had endured 5 years of this. 5 years of silence, of smallness, of swallowing pain. But something had shifted. The Duke had seen her. Twice now. And Lady Linda was afraid. Yasmin didn't know what that meant, but she felt it, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Change was coming, whether she was ready or not. 2 weeks later, the county assembly was held at the town hall. It was the social event of the season. Music, dancing, food, every family of standing attended. Lady Linda had planned Georgina's appearance for weeks. Her dress was cream silk with gold embroidery. Her hair was styled in elaborate curls. She wore her mother's pearl necklace. Yasmin had not been invited. But the morning of the assembly, Zachary Doyle sent a personal invitation to Simpson Manor, addressed to the household. Lady Linda's face went white when she read it. Georgina looked at her mother nervously. "What is it?" "He's invited the entire household, including Yasmin." Georgina's stomach dropped. "Gus, what will you do?" Lady Linda's mind raced. She couldn't refuse a duke's invitation. It would be an insult. But she also couldn't let Yasmin attend. Unless... An idea formed. "Yasmin will attend," Lady Linda said slowly. "But she will understand her place." That afternoon, Lady Linda called Yasmin to her sitting room. "The Duke has invited us to the county assembly. You will attend." Yasmin blinked in surprise. "I will?" "Yes, but you will wear this." Lady Linda held up a dress. It was old, faded, ill-fitting, the kind of dress a servant might wear. Yasmin's throat tightened. "I have my mother's dress. You will wear what I give you, or you will not attend at all." Yasmin looked at the dress. It was humiliation, plain and simple. But something inside her refused to break. "I'll wear it." Lady Linda smiled coldly. "All good." The night of the assembly, Yasmin arrived in the faded brown dress. It hung loose on her frame, the hem uneven. Her hair was pinned simply, no ornament. Georgina beside her looked like a princess. Every eye turned to her as they entered. But Zachary's eyes found Yasmin. He stood near the musicians, speaking with Nicholas. When he saw her, his expression darkened. He excused himself and crossed the room. "Miss Chamberlain," she curtsied. "Your Grace." "You came." "Yes." His eyes moved over her dress, his jaw tight. "I'm glad you're here." Before she could respond, Lady Linda appeared. "Your Grace, how wonderful to see you." Zachary's smile was polite but cold. "Lady Simpson, Georgina was just saying how much she's been looking forward to tonight." Georgina stepped forward, smiling nervously. "Your Grace." Zachary bowed. "Miss Simpson, you look lovely." "Thank you." The music began. A waltz. Zachary turned to Yasmin. "Miss Chamberlain, would you do me the honor?" The room went silent. Lady Linda's face paled. Yasmin's heart pounded. Your Grace, I don't think... Please! She looked into his eyes, saw kindness there, saw something else, too. She placed her hand in his. The crowd parted as they walked to the dance floor. Zachary's hand settled on her waist. Her hand rested on his shoulder. The music swelled. They began to move. Yasmin had learned to dance as a child. Her father had taught her in the gardens of Simpson Manor, humming the tune as they spun in circles. Now, she moved with Zachary, her feet light, her heart racing. "You dance beautifully," he said quietly. "My father taught me." "He taught you well." They turned, gliding across the floor. To every eye was on them. Lady Linda stood at the edge of the room, her face white with fury. Georgina watched, her hands trembling. When the music ended, Zachary bowed. "Thank you, Miss Chamberlain. Thank you, Your Grace." He didn't release her hand immediately. "Would you walk with me, in the gardens?" She hesitated. "I don't know if... Please." She nodded. They walked outside into the cool night air. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting soft light over the garden paths. Zachary led her to a bench beneath a willow tree. "Sit with me." She sat, her hands folded in her lap. Zachary looked at her carefully. "Why do you let her treat you this way?" Yasmin's breath caught. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Silence. Yasmin looked down. "I have nowhere else to go." "Your father left you nothing?" "The estate went to Lady Linda." "Oh, I have no claim." Zachary's hands clenched. "That's wrong. It's the law. The law can be cruel." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Zachary spoke softly. "You deserve better than this." Yasmin's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back. "Thank you for saying so." "I mean it." She looked at him, really looked at him, saw sincerity in his eyes. "Why do you care?" she whispered. Zachary hesitated. "Because I see you, Yasmin, and I think you've been unseen for far too long." Her heart ached. Before she could respond, footsteps approached. Lady Linda appeared, her face a mask of false concern. "Yasmin, we're leaving." "Now." Zachary stood. "Lady Simpson, thank you for your hospitality, Your Grace. But Yasmin is unwell. We must go." Yasmin stood slowly. "I'm fine. We're leaving." Zachary's eyes burned. "Miss Chamberlain is welcome to stay. She's under my care, Your Grace, and I say we're leaving." Yasmin looked at Zachary, apology in her eyes. "Good night, Your Grace." She followed Lady Linda back inside, her heart sinking. Zachary watched them go, fury building in his chest. Nicholas appeared beside him. "Your Grace, that woman is... I know what she is." "What will you do?" Zachary's jaw set. "I'm going to find out exactly what's happening in that house, and I'm going to stop it." The next morning, Zachary summoned Nicholas to his study. "I want you to speak with the staff at Simpson Manor, discreetly. Find out how Miss Chamberlain is treated when no one is watching." Nicholas nodded. "I'll see what I can learn." "And speak with Reverend Giles. He knows something." "Yes, Your Grace." That afternoon, when Nicholas visited the market in town, he knew that servants from all the great houses gathered there on their half-day. He found Libby, the young kitchen maid from Simpson Manor, buying vegetables. "Libby." The girl looked up, startled. "Mr. Baker? May I walk with you?" She nodded nervously. As they walked, Nicholas spoke carefully. "I'm concerned about Miss Chamberlain." Libby's eyes widened. "Why?" "Because I think she's being mistreated, and I need to know the truth." Libby looked around nervously. "I could lose my position. You won't, I promise. But I need your help." Libby hesitated. Then she spoke, her voice low. "It's bad, Mr. Baker, real bad." Tell me. Lady Simpson treats her like a servant. Worse than a servant. She makes her work all hours, won't let her have proper clothes, or won't let her eat with the family. Nicholas's hands clenched. Go on. She hits her sometimes. When she's angry. Elizabeth has seen the bruises. Nicholas's face darkened. Elizabeth Ferguson. Yes, sir. She's tried to help Miss Yasmin, but there's only so much she can do. Does anyone else know? The staff knows, but we're too afraid to speak. Lady Simpson would turn us all out. Nicholas placed a hand on her shoulder. Thank you, Libby. You've done the right thing. That evening, Nicholas reported everything to Zachary. Zachary's face was stone. I need proof. Proof, testimony, witnesses, something that will hold up if I bring charges. Nicholas nodded. I'll speak with Elizabeth Ferguson. 2 days later, Nicholas met with Elizabeth in the gardens of St. Michael's Church. Elizabeth was cautious at first, but when Nicholas explained that the Duke wanted to help Yasmin, something in her softened. I've wanted to speak for years, she said quietly, but I was afraid. You're safe now. Tell me everything. Elizabeth took a breath. Then she began. She told him about the beatings, the starvation, the verbal abuse, the isolation. She told him about the time Lady Linda locked Yasmin in her room for 3 days without food because she had smiled at a visitor. She told him everything. By the time she finished, Nicholas's face was pale with rage. Will you testify to this? If needed. Elizabeth hesitated. Then she nodded. Yes, I will. That night, Zachary sat in his study, the fire burning low. He now had proof, but proof wasn't enough. He needed a plan. Lady Linda Simpson was clever. She would deny everything. She would paint Yasmin as a liar, not a troublemaker. He needed something irrefutable. He needed to catch her in the act. The following week, Zachary sent another invitation to Simpson Manor. This time it was for a private luncheon at Norcaster Hall. Lady Linda accepted immediately. She saw it as an opportunity, a chance for Georgina to shine. But Zachary had other plans. The day of the luncheon, Yasmin was told she would not be attending. You'll stay here, Lady Linda said coldly, and you'll clean the silver while we're gone. Yasmin nodded quietly. But an hour after the carriage left, there was a knock at the door. Elizabeth answered. It was Nicholas Baker. I'm here for Miss Chamberlain, he said. The Duke requests her presence. Elizabeth's eyes widened. But Lady Simpson, the Duke outranks Lady Simpson. Miss Chamberlain will come with me. Yasmin appeared in the hallway, confusion on her face. Mr. Baker? Miss Chamberlain, the Duke has asked me to bring you to Norcaster Hall, immediately. Yasmin's heart raced. But I'm not dressed. There's a gown waiting for you in the carriage. Yasmin looked at Elizabeth. Elizabeth smiled. Go, miss. Go. In the carriage, Yasmin found a dress of soft blue muslin, simple but beautiful. There were slippers, a shawl, everything she needed. She changed quickly, her hands trembling. When they arrived at Norcaster Hall, Zachary was waiting. He smiled when he saw her. You look beautiful. She blushed. Your Grace, I don't understand. Come, I'll explain. He led her inside, past the dining room where Lady Linda and Georgina sat with several other guests, and into a private sitting room. Sit. She sat. And as Zachary sat across from her, I know what she's been doing to you. Yasmin's face went pale. Don't lie to me, Yasmin. I know about the beatings, the abuse, all of it. Tears filled her eyes. How? Elizabeth spoke to my steward. Others have confirmed it. Yasmin's hands shook. You can't do anything. She's my guardian. She's a tyrant, and I'm going to stop her. How? Zachary leaned forward. I'm going to force her to show her true nature, in front of witnesses. Yasmin's breath caught. How? Trust me. Over the next hour, Zachary explained his plan. It was risky, but it might work. That afternoon, Yasmin returned to Simpson Manor before Lady Linda arrived. When the carriage pulled up, Yasmin was in the kitchen, as expected. Lady Linda stormed in, her face tight with fury. "Where were you?" Yasmin looked up, feigning innocence. "Here, my lady, cleaning the silver." "Don't lie to me. Someone saw you at Norcaster Hall." Yasmin's heart pounded. "I don't know what you mean." Lady Linda's hand shot out and grabbed Yasmin's wrist, twisting hard. "You were there. Admit it." Yasmin gasped in pain. "I went because the Duke requested." Lady Linda slapped her hard across the face. Elizabeth appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Lady Linda released Yasmin and turned. "Get out." Elizabeth hesitated. "My lady, get out." Elizabeth left, but her mind was racing. She went straight to the stables and found the stable boy. "Ride to Norcaster Hall. Now, tell the Duke it's happening." 2 days later, Lady Linda announced a family outing. "We're going to the cliffs," she said over breakfast. "A picnic. Fresh air will do us all good." Georgina looked surprised. "All of us?" "Yes, including Yasmin." Yasmin's stomach twisted. Elizabeth caught her eye from across the room. There was warning in her gaze. That afternoon, they rode in the carriage toward the white chalk cliffs that overlooked the sea. The day was clear and bright. The wind smelled of salt. When they arrived, a blanket was spread near the edge. Food was laid out. But Yasmin couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Lady Linda stood near the cliff's edge, looking out at the water. "Come, Yasmin. The view is extraordinary." Yasmin hesitated. Georgina whispered, "Mother, what are you doing?" Lady Linda ignored her. "Yasmin, come here." Yasmin walked slowly toward her stepmother, her heart pounding. Lady Linda turned to face her, her eyes cold. "Do you know why I brought you here?" Yasmin's throat tightened. "No, but my lady, because you have become a problem I can no longer ignore." Before Yasmin could respond, Lady Linda's hand shot out and shoved her hard. Yasmin stumbled backward, her feet slipping on the loose chalk. The edge crumbled beneath her. She screamed. Her arms flailed, grasping at air, and then a hand clamped around her wrist. Zachary Doyle had been watching from the ridge. He had followed them, just as he planned. He ran forward, his boots pounding against the earth, and threw himself to the ground, grabbing Yasmin's wrist with both hands. Her weight pulled him forward, but he braced his legs, his muscles straining. "Hold on!" Yasmin's eyes were wide with terror, her fingers digging into his forearm. Behind them, Lady Linda stood frozen, her face pale with shock. Georgina screamed. Zachary pulled with all his strength, dragging Yasmin back onto solid ground. She collapsed against him, gasping, trembling. He held her steady, his heart pounding. Then he turned to Lady Linda, his voice like iron. "What have you done?" Lady Linda's mouth opened, but no words came. Georgina stood with her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Zachary helped Yasmin to her feet, his arm still around her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak. He turned back to Lady Linda, his eyes blazing. "You pushed her." "I did no such thing. I saw you." The air went still. Lady Linda's face shifted, panic flickering beneath the mask. "It was an accident. She stumbled." "You are a liar." The word hung in the air like a sentence. Georgina sank to her knees, sobbing. "Mother, what have you done?" Lady Linda's composure cracked. Look, she was going to ruin everything. He was supposed to choose you, Georgina. You, not some nobody orphan. Zachary's voice was low and deadly. "She is not nobody." He looked down at Yasmin, still shaking in his arms. "Can you stand?" She nodded. He released her gently, then turned to Lady Linda. "You will leave this county. You will never speak to Miss Chamberlain again. And if you do not comply, I will see you brought before a magistrate for attempted murder." Lady Linda's face went white. "You have no proof. I am a duke. My word is proof enough." Zachary stepped closer. "And I have witnesses. Elizabeth Ferguson, Libby, others. They will all testify to years of abuse." Lady Linda's legs weakened. "You can't." "I can, and I will." Georgina looked up at her mother, her face broken. "How could you?" Lady Linda had no answer, but Zachary turned to Yasmin. "Come, I'll take you somewhere safe." She followed him without question, her legs weak, her mind numb. As they rode away on his horse, Yasmin looked back once. Lady Linda stood at the edge of the cliff, alone. Georgina was kneeling in the grass, weeping. Zachary brought Yasmin to Norcaster Hall. Olivia, the housekeeper, a warm woman in her 60s, took her immediately to a guest room. She brought tea, blankets, and sat with her until her hands stopped shaking. "You're safe now, dear," Olivia said gently. "No one will hurt you here." Yasmin nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Nicholas Baker appeared in the doorway. "Your Grace, word is spreading." Zachary stood in the hallway, his face grim. "Let it spread." "Lady Simpson will be dealt with." Nicholas nodded. "Elizabeth Ferguson is here. Oh, she wants to see Miss Chamberlain. Bring her up." Elizabeth entered the room quietly, her face filled with relief and sorrow. "Miss Yasmin." Yasmin stood and embraced her. "Elizabeth, I'm so sorry. I should have spoken sooner. You spoke when it mattered." They held each other for a long moment. Then Elizabeth pulled back. "I've brought your things. What I could gather." She handed Yasmin a small bag. Inside were a few dresses, her mother's locket, and a bundle of letters. Yasmin's throat tightened. "Thank you." That evening there was a soft knock on Yasmin's door. "Come in." Zachary entered, his expression gentle. "May I sit?" She nodded. He sat across from her. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." "You couldn't have known." "I should have. The way she spoke of you, the way she kept you hidden." He paused. "Your father would be ashamed of her." Yasmin's throat tightened. "I don't know what happens now. You stay here for as long as you need." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "But why are you helping me?" "Because it's the right thing to do." He hesitated. "And because I see you, Yasmin. I always have." Her breath caught. Before she could respond, there was another knock. Olivia appeared. "Your Grace, Miss Georgina Simpson is here. She's asking to see Miss Chamberlain." Yasmin stiffened. Zachary looked at her. "Do you want to see her?" She hesitated, then nodded. Georgina entered the room slowly, her face red and swollen from crying. She looked smaller, somehow, fragile. "Yasmin." Yasmin stood. "Georgina, I didn't know." Georgina's voice broke. "I swear I didn't know she was going to—" She couldn't finish. "I believe you." Georgina's face crumpled. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For how she treated you. For how I let it happen." Yasmin's ribs ached. "You were her daughter. Or you did what you were taught. That's no excuse." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Georgina whispered, "What will happen to her?" "She'll leave," Zachary said quietly. "And she won't return." Georgina nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm leaving too. I have an aunt in Bath. I'll go there." Yasmin stepped forward. "Georgina, I need to start over, away from all of this." She looked at Yasmin, her eyes filled with regret. "I hope you find happiness, Yasmin. You deserve it." She turned and left without another word. Yasmin stood in the doorway, watching her go. Zachary came to stand beside her. "Are you all right?" "I think so." He took her hand gently. "You're safe now, I promise." She believed him. The next morning, Reverend Peter Giles arrived at Norcaster Hall. Zachary met him in the library. "Your Grace, I heard what happened." "News travels fast." Peter nodded. "I've come to offer testimony, if needed." Zachary's brow rose. "Testimony? I've suspected abuse in that household for years. I've seen Yasmin come to church with bruises. I've heard confessions that troubled me deeply. From Lady Simpson? I cannot say, but I can testify to what I've witnessed." Zachary nodded. "Thank you, Reverend." That afternoon, the local magistrate, a man named Thomas Weston, arrived at Norcaster Hall. Zachary laid out the evidence: Elizabeth's testimony, Libby's account, Peter's observations, and his own witnessed attempt at murder. Thomas listened carefully. His face grew darker with each revelation. "This is serious, Your Grace." "I know. Lady Simpson could face criminal charges." "She should." Thomas nodded slowly. "I'll speak with her, and I'll make arrangements." 3 days later, Lady Linda Simpson left Norcaster County. She was not arrested. The scandal alone was punishment enough. No family would receive her. No society would acknowledge her. She disappeared into obscurity, her reputation destroyed. The estate of Simpson Manor was placed under the management of a distant cousin, a kind man named Harold Pemberton. He invited Yasmin to return, but she declined. She wanted nothing from that house. Instead, she stayed at Norcaster Hall. At first, she felt like a guest, but slowly the place became familiar. The gardens, the library, the quiet mornings, and Zachary. Spring turned to summer. The gardens of Norcaster Hall bloomed with colour. Roses, lavender, jasmine. Yasmin spent her mornings there, cutting flowers and reading beneath the old oak tree. Zachary visited her often. They walked the grounds together, spoke of books and weather and small, gentle things. One evening, as they sat in the library, Zachary asked, "What do you want, Yasmin? For your future?" She looked at him, surprised. "I don't know. I've never been asked." "Then think about it. Take your time. But know this. You are not a burden. You are not a shadow. You are seen." Her eyes filled with tears. He reached across the table and took her hand. "And you are safe." Over the following weeks, their friendship deepened. Zachary taught her to ride. She was nervous at first, but he was patient. "Just trust the horse," he said. "She'll take care of you." And she did. They rode through the countryside, the wind in their hair, the sun on their faces. Yasmin laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. Zachary watched her, his heart full. One afternoon, as they rested by a stream, Yasmin spoke softly. "I never thought I'd feel this way again." "What way?" "Happy." Zachary looked at her. "You deserve happiness." "So do you." He smiled. "I think I've found it." Their eyes met. Something passed between them, something quiet and certain. Zachary reached for her hand. "Yasmin, yes, I care for you. Deeply." Her breath caught. "I know you've been through more than anyone should endure, and I know you're still finding your footing. But I also know what I feel." He paused. "I would like to court you properly, with your permission." Yasmin's heart raced. "I don't expect an answer now," he continued, "but I needed you to know." She looked at him. This man who had pulled her from the edge of death, who had given her shelter, who had seen her when the world tried to erase her. "Yes," she whispered. He blinked. "Yes? Yes, you may court me." A smile broke across his face, genuine and bright. He stepped closer and gently took her hand. "Then I will do everything in my power to make you happy." She believed him. The courtship was slow and sweet. Zachary was nothing like the men Yasmin had read about in novels. He wasn't rushed or demanding. He was patient, kind. He brought her flowers, not grand bouquets but single stems, a rose, a sprig of lavender. "I remembered you liked these," he would say, and she did. They took long walks, rode through the countryside, sat in the library and read together. Sometimes they didn't speak at all, just sat in comfortable silence. One evening, as they sat in the garden, Zachary asked, "Oh, tell me about your mother." Yasmin smiled softly. She was gentle. She loved flowers. She used to say every bloom had a story. "What was her name?" "Catherine." "She sounds wonderful." She was. Zachary squeezed her hand. "I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you." They sat in silence, the stars beginning to appear above them. Then Yasmin asked, "What about your parents?" Zachary's face grew distant. "They died when I was young. A carriage accident. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but I still miss them." "You never stop missing them," Yasmin said quietly. Zachary looked at her. "No, you don't." They sat together, two people who understood loss and found comfort in each other. Over the months, Yasmin began to heal. The nightmares faded. The fear lessened. She started to smile more, laugh more, and she started to feel like herself again. One afternoon, Olivia found her in the kitchen, humming as she arranged flowers. "You look happy, dear." Yasmin smiled. "I am. The Duke is a good man." "He is." Olivia patted her hand. "I'm glad you found each other." Yasmin's heart swelled. She was glad, too. Autumn arrived, painting the countryside in gold and red. Yasmin and Zachary sat by the fire in the library one evening, reading. Zachary set down his book and looked at her. "Yasmin." She looked up. "Yes?" "I need to ask you something." Her heart quickened. He stood and walked to the window. "I've been thinking about the future, about what I want." "And what do you want?" He turned to face her. "You." Her breath caught. "I know we've only been courting for a few months, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He crossed the room and knelt before her. Her eyes widened. "Yasmin Chamberlain, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." He smiled, relief and joy flooding his face. He pulled a ring from his pocket, a simple gold band with a single sapphire. "It was my mother's." He slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Yasmin looked at the ring, then at him, her heart overflowing. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." He pulled her into his arms and kissed her, softly, gently. It was a kiss that tasted of promise and hope. When they pulled apart, Yasmin was smiling through her tears. "I never thought I'd be this happy." Neither did I. They sat together by the fire, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves. But inside, everything was warm and safe and right. The wedding took place in the spring, in the chapel at St. Michael's Church. The ceremony was small and intimate. Elizabeth Ferguson stood as Yasmin's witness. Nicholas Baker stood for Zachary. Peter Giles smiled as he spoke the vows. Yasmin wore a gown of ivory lace, simple and elegant. Her hair was pinned with roses. Zachary wore a black coat and a look of quiet joy. When Peter said, "You may kiss your bride," Zachary pulled Yasmin close and kissed her softly. The small gathering applauded. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds and the church bells rang. They walked down the aisle together, hand in hand. At the reception at Norcaster Hall, there was music and laughter and dancing. Yasmin danced with Zachary, her heart full. "Happy?" he asked, or more than I ever thought possible. Later, Elizabeth approached her. "You look beautiful, my lady." Yasmin hugged her. "Thank you for everything, Elizabeth. I'm just glad you're happy." "I am." Georgina had sent a letter from Bath. She was engaged to a kind schoolteacher named James, she said, and learning what it meant to be loved without conditions. Yasmin had written back, wishing her well. Some wounds heal, some scars fade, and some people learn to forgive. That night, as Yasmin and Zachary stood in the garden of Norcaster Hall, looking up at the stars, Yasmin felt peace. True peace. For the first time in her life, she was home. A year later, Yasmin stood in the rose garden, her hand resting on her swollen belly. She was expecting. Zachary came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her. "How are you feeling?" "Happy," she said softly. He kissed her temple. "Good." They stood together, watching the sun set over the hills. "What should we name the baby?" Yasmin asked. "If it's a girl, Catherine, after your mother." Yasmin's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that." "And if it's a boy?" "William? After my father." Zachary smiled. "Perfect." They stood in the fading light, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had survived cruelty and found kindness, who had known darkness and chosen light. Yasmin looked up at her husband, her heart full. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For saving me." Zachary cupped her face gently. "You saved yourself, Yasmin. I just gave you a safe place to land." She smiled, and in that moment, surrounded by roses and love and the promise of tomorrow, Yasmin knew that she had finally found what she'd been searching for all along. Not rescue, not escape, but home. 10 years later, the gardens of Norcaster Hall bloomed brighter than ever. 3 children ran through the paths, laughing and chasing butterflies. Catherine, the eldest, had her mother's gentle eyes. William, the middle child, had his father's smile. And little Rose, the youngest, had both. Yasmin sat on a bench beneath the old oak tree, watching them play. Zachary sat beside her, his hand in hers. "They're beautiful," she said. "They are. Just like their mother." She leaned her head on his shoulder. Life had not been without challenges, but they had faced them together, and they had built something good, something lasting. Elizabeth still worked at Norcaster Hall, now as head housekeeper. She adored the children, and they adored her. Georgina had visited twice from Bath, with her husband and 2 children of her own. The visits were cordial, kind. The past was forgiven, if not forgotten. Lady Linda Simpson had died 3 years ago, alone, unmourned. Yasmin had not attended the funeral. She had made peace with the past, but she did not owe it her presence. Now, as she sat in the garden with her husband and watched her children play, she felt gratitude for the life she had built, for the love she had found, for the courage to survive, and for the man who had grabbed her hand when she was falling and never let go. This is where Yasmin's story ends, not in erasure, but in becoming. From the edge of a cliff to the arms of a man who saw her worth, she learned that survival is not the same as living, and that truth, when spoken, has the power to set you free. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that cruelty never wins and that destiny cannot be pushed aside, then do us one kindness. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear that they matter. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that speaks to the strength of the human heart. and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Thank you for being part of this journey. Until the next story, remember, you are seen, you are valued, and your story is worth telling. I will see you in the next story.